Thanks. Welcome, councillors and Mr CEO. Welcome everybody to the council meeting for Wednesday the 17th of June 2020. I'd like to make a mention about live streaming. Council is keen to engage with members of the community and now live streams the formal council meetings to make them accessible. The stream will be available to view on Ararat Rural City Council's Facebook page from 6 p.m. and on Council's website www.ararat.vic.gov.au from Thursday morning following the council meeting. You do not require a Facebook account to watch the live broadcast. Simply enter www.facebook.com/Ararat Rural City Council into your address bar. Councillors, please stand for the traditional acknowledgement, the opening prayer and the councillors' pledge. Councillor Braithwaite.
Thank you. We acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today and pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging.
Councillor Allgood.
And in prayer, Almighty God, we humbly ask you to help us as elected councillors of the Ararat Rural City Council, guide our deliberations, prosper what is your will for us, to your honour and glory and for the welfare and benefit of the people whom we serve in the Ararat Rural City.
And Councillor Hull.
Councillors pledge we will undertake the duties of the office of councillor in the best interests of the people of the municipal district of the Ararat Rural City Council and faithfully and impartially carry out the functions, powers, authorities and discretions vested in us under the Local Government Act 2020 and the Local Government Act 1989 or any other act to the best of our skill and judgment.
Thank you. Please be seated. We have all councillors present at the meeting this evening. The next item on the agenda is the confirmation of minutes. We have a recommendation that the minutes of the council meetings held on the 6th of May and the 10th of June this year be confirmed. Do I have somebody to move? Councillor Hull, seconded Councillor Allgood. I'll put that motion to the vote. Those in favour? That's carried. Item 1.5, the declaration of disclosure of interests. Councillors and Mr CEO, do we have
received?
None received. Item 1.6, the admission of urgent business. Mr CEO?
None
received. We have, I believe, no petitions, which takes us through section 2, right up to section 3, the reports requiring council decision. The first item on tonight's agenda in this part of the meeting is item 3.1, the year 2020 general valuation. And Mr CEO.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just very briefly, Council received our general valuations from our valuer, Peter Newman, who works on behalf of Valuer General Victoria. These were delivered to us. There are a range of valuation categories there, residential, commercial, industrial, which does include our wind farm valuations, and also rural, which includes urban rural farmland, and also non-rateable but leviable properties, which are properties that are not subject to rates but are subject to fire services levy. Council are asked to adopt these valuations subject to final ministerial approval.
Thank you. Councillors, do you have any questions of the CEO? There being none, I'll take a motion. That's Councillor Beale's moved and seconded Councillor Braithwaite. The recommendation as put in the agenda. Any discussion to the motion? Councillor Beales, Councillor Braithwaite?
Just that we had a revaluation about 80 months prior to this, or 2 years prior to this, and the farmland rate has gone up by over 50% in that period of time. That has grave concerns about the viability and, or the increased interest of foreign people in our land, pushing the price of land up and making it unviable for local people, for local farmers.
Thank you.
It is a concern.
Thanks, Councillor Dodge.
I got no idea how you would rectify the problem. It really depends on the farmers which sell their land or sell their farm to foreigners, or how do you do this? I don't know.
Any further comment, councillors?
Just to say that some of the people that I've had speaking to me always feel disappointed that the valuation is taken from the front of the property with no knowledge of them walking around the place or looking at anything else apart from the front of the property. And they expressed disappointment with that.
If I could, Madam Mayor, the valuations are conducted by a valuer according to the legal requirements, and they would be conducted in the same way.
That's what I told them.
It's public. Yep,
They still like to tell me that.
of course I do.
Councillor Beales?
No, thank you.
There being no desire to close discussion, I'll put that recommendation to the vote. Those in favour? And against? That is carried. Item 3.2, the Draft Council Plan 2017-2021, incorporating the Strategic Resource Plan. Mr CEO.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Council adopted its draft council plan about a month ago. It's been out for its statutory period of public consultation. There was one submission received which was considered, and the recommendation here is that Council adopts its draft council plan for 2017-2021, which being the final year of the current council plan. So,
Very good. Any questions, councillors? No? There being none, I'll put that motion to the vote. Sorry, not to the vote. I'm asking for somebody to move the motion. Thanks, Councillor Beales. And a seconder, Councillor Deutsch. Thank you. Councillor Beales, do you wish to speak to the motion?
No, thank you.
Councillor Deutsch? Any other councillors wishing to speak for the motion?
Oh, sorry if I could. Yeah,
Yes.
I think it's been very... we started off 4 years ago with a very cumbersome council plan, in my opinion, and was very, very high on desire to do things and very low on how we were going to do it. And I think we undertook a review of that fairly early on and produced a new council plan, and I think we can feel very happy that largely it has been succeeded to be completed.
Thank you, Councillor.
It's been delivered.
No further then comment, councillors. I shall put the recommendation as it is in the agenda to the vote. Those in favour and against, and that is carried. To item 3.3, the draft budget 2020-2021. Again, Mr CEO.
thank you, Madam Mayor. The draft budget for 2020-21, that's a bit of a tongue twister.
There's a good one.
Has been again out for community consultation. We received 14 submissions to that, and 3 people spoke to those last week. We've considered those submissions from the community, and we have moved forward our budget based on the one that was adopted by Council in draft form. The highlights of that are presented within the document, including the 1% rate cut and a range of, again, a fairly ambitious capital works program for the year. No new loan borrowings is an important consideration there, I think it's fair to say, because and also there's been some movement there around equalisation of rating. And I'll recommend the longest resolution Council will pass for the year, I'm sure.
It certainly is in 12 parts, isn't it? And I will just add comment that the attachments have all been made publicly available through the Council website. Are there any questions, councillors? CEO? No? We have a motion in 12 parts. Do I, Councillor Beales, to move the motion as put in the agenda. Do I have somebody to second that motion? Councillor Braithwaite and Councillor Beales, would you like to speak?
I'll just speak shortly on it. The budget is the final step in the direction the council set to implement our strategic plan and our council plan. I'd just like to on the subject that the CEO did mention, that the Mayor of Horsham in a TV interview indicated that the majority of councils that didn't pass on the 2% rate rise are probably borrowing money to cover this cost. That's not our case, and it's not the case of the municipalities that I know. Firstly, that money can't be borrowed to run infrastructure. It can only be borrowed to build infrastructure, not to running costs of the council. Our loans are well below the state government's limit. Some of our neighbouring councils have up to $7.5 million in loans, and ours is around about $2 million, of which almost all of it is redeemed next year, and we've been putting money aside to pay that off.
Thank you, Councillor Beales. Councillor Brathwaite, do you?
Yeah, I endorse those comments by Councillor Beales. I do like the budget. I like the fact that we are not taking up the 2% and that we're actually giving back 1%, which means in the life of this council basically it's a 5% cut, which is exactly what the people told us they want. My one concern about what we're approving tonight is that we have done a further modification to the rating strategy, which is incorporated in this document, and you've done it at a time when it was impossible to consult with the community. We've gone from the council that did the most transparent and most engaged rating strategy 2 years ago to one of the, quite frankly, the most secretive. And I don't think that, I find that a concern, and I also think it doesn't hold us in great credit. And I do support the budget.
Any other councillors wishing to speak for the motion? Councillor Hull.
I endorse the comments about both of the councillors who've spoken previously, and would like to add some comments of my own. I think the fact that this council and this draft budget is based on a rate reduction of 1% and has been achieved without any loans, as been pointed out, it is actually a perfect case of increased productivity, because we've managed to drop we could have raised the rates by 2%. That was the amount allowed by the state government. Instead of that, we chose to drop the rate by 1%, which in effect is a 3% productivity of this council. And I think that's a pretty amazing achievement. And I think we need to congratulate the CEO and his staff, who must have worked very hard to come up with what we as councillors asked for. And I commend them for that. And I think we can be fairly pleased with ourselves as a council that we have been able to do this. And particularly in a year when the COVID-19 has had unprecedented effects on the economy for the individual ratepayers, for businesses, right throughout the community, and to be able to not give them a rate rise this year, I think is wonderful. The other comment that I would make is in connection, which has been referred to by Councillor Brathwaite, as the changes in differential. In the submissions there was a submission that asked that we reduce the commercial and industrial because of the COVID-19 situation. There was a submission that asked that the farm rate be increased in line with valuations. And I have thought about it very carefully. The thing that people in their daily lives, both in business and individuals, want is some form of certainty. When they develop their budget at the beginning of the year, they hope that their utilities aren't going to go up, that their food isn't going to go up, and their rates don't go up. This year, by the way that we have managed the differentials, has meant that everybody has had certainty. Nobody has had any significant rise in their rates. In fact, the vast majority of ratepayers would have had a reduction because of the 1% decrease. They know that what they budgeted is what they want. And I think it's also a perfect example of the fact that the system which we are bound to by government legislation, which says that we base our rates on valuations is flawed. This year, the valuations don't take any account of COVID-19 and the impact on businesses or people. It doesn't take any notice of the impact on the farms by the issues with China and barley and beef. It's a flawed system, and I think that we have to use it in the best way possible for our ratepayers, and I think the path we have chosen to take this year is the best that we could possibly do, which will give our ratepayers certainty that their budget is not going to be far out. I mean, for some people it will be, because valuations vary among different ratepayers, but I think we have come up with the fairest way of dealing with the flaws in the valuation system and given our ratepayers something that they can cope with.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments from councillors? Councillor Wood.
I could just make a brief one. One of the things that I was very happy about was the fact that we were very lucky in that we started the whole process early, so we had an opportunity to actually sit down and talk about it. I guess one of my main concerns was the businesses and the struggle that they were having, in that they were actually looking at, we have lost some of the businesses, and I think that a lot of other ones have struggled. You really didn't know what was going to happen with the farmers, as Councillor Hull's already mentioned about China. And I just think that what we've actually done, the way that we did it, and the early time that the CEO got us to look at it and start making decisions right back when we could meet, I think was really good. So I'm really pleased with what we've done, and I think that we can hold our heads high and say that we've done the best we possibly can with the hand that we've been dealt this year, because we're all feeling it. There's not one person around that isn't feeling very savagely what's going on at the moment. So I think that we've been very kind and we've been realistic, and we work well with the staff to come up with the opportunity that we've got tonight.
Thanks, Councillor Wood. Any other councillors? No? I can pass comment myself on this recommendation, and I would actually like to endorse very much Councillor Hull's commentary around the broken rating system that we are trying to work with as councillors. And I do agree that we have done the very best we can with the tools that we have on offer. And I disagree very strongly, Councillor Braithwaite, that your charge that our process has been secretive. I do not believe that is the case, because the philosophy of management of the situation has derived directly from the very extensive community consultation process that this council undertook with the Rating Strategy Advisory Group and the Citizens Jury. Now, Councillor Beals, would you like to close debate?
Thank you very much, and I'm pleased with the comments that the other councillors have made. It's good to have opinions put out there. I think what the community want is consistency, and in relation to the rating system, it is flawed, and the government still hasn't come back with their review results. And when that does, we might have a proper conversation about it, because the conversation that the government had with the community was flawed to start with, so we'll be able to tear that apart. However, we have maintained the percentage of rates by sector. I think this was very important in all the discussions we had at the time, rather than concentrating on individual classifications. One of the issues that have been raised, the commercial and industrial rates, they've lowered, but they lowered last year too. We dropped them down from 1.6, I think, down to 1.3. I can't remember the figures, but they dropped last year and they've dropped again this year. But we have employed in our municipality 6.5% in tourism and hospitality. We've been very lucky compared to shires like Northern Grampians, which would have at least triple that. When you look at Halls Gap, there's no industry, there's no Gasons, there's no AME, there's no hospital, these big ticket items, and education in this town, having 2 secondary schools they are big pluses for our community, why we've been able to actually not just survive. Some businesses have done very well. Gases was on landline because people are saying we need to buy equipment, but the parts are made here. If you keep importing things from overseas all the time and the supply chain's cut off, you're in trouble. So if one thing we've learned from the pandemic is maybe that we should be making our protective clothing and some of our industries here. This budget is probably the best budget I've seen in or out of an emergency. It's increasing spending in areas where the community wants it. And we've had projects available quickly to pull out of the drawer straight away. And then our staff have been able to identify and work up plans for other things really quickly. The one thing the pandemic has done for this council is shown the quality of some of our staff and that they've not had the opportunity in the past to show. And I think we're really lucky, really lucky. We upgraded our services to community when other organisations pulled back. Some of our organisations, a lot of their workers are in a vulnerable position, dealing with vulnerable people, and a lot of services were pulled back for obvious reasons, and we've stepped in. But one of the main things we've done in this budget is put money into our economy now. The latest federal government grant program, they announced how they're going to cut red tape and projects will be available in 22 months. Well, 22 months is not now. We are doing it now, and all this extra money that we've got and we've saved and our efficiencies will be spent in this financial year, benefiting this community, and I just can't recommend the budget any higher. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Beales. So our recommendation in 12 parts, councillors, I shall put that to the vote. Those in favour? And against? And that is carried. Thank you, councillors. Item 3.4, the Wallora Railway Station Precinct, deed of consent to and variation of sublease. Mr. CEO.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Council currently has direct lease arrangements with Big Track around railway lots 47, 48 and 49 in Wallora. There was an addendum to this as well. I think you should all received this one. There's a couple of errors there. Currently, we have a sublease arrangement with Wallora Modern Inc. for the railway station site itself, and we've had a request from Wallora Modern to actually extend that sublease to lots 48 and 49, which include the Memorial Garden and the courthouse, which has now got a new roof, like pointed out the other day. You can see it there in the picture; it's very shiny. I think it strikes me as a good arrangement for us to reach with the Wallora community. They take very good care of that site. Wallora Modern is an exemplary community-based organisation that does very good work. It'll be good to see them extend that work across that site. So the sublease is something I recommend strongly to council.
Very good. Any questions for the CEO, councillors? No? There being none, we have a recommendation that myself and the CEO sign and seal the deed of consent and variation of sublease for the railway lots 47, 48 and 49 at Wallora. Do I have somebody to move? Councillor Allwood and seconded Councillor Hart. Do you wish to speak to the motion, Councillor Allwood?
Just a couple of things. I just would like to congratulate Wallora in the way that they keep pushing forward and developing and opening things. And I know that the CEO is very passionate about the bakery down there and the pies. But can I just say that I was surprised when I went down there the other day and found out that the service station's reopened. And I think that, you know, all these little tips alongside all of these small communities is great, and to give them encouragement and to be able to work alongside them to do these projects is an absolute bonus for the whole municipality.
Thank you. Councillor Hunt, you wish to speak to?
I endorse Councillor Allwood's comments. Wallora is a typical example of our villages. They're very self-motivated. They get up, they do things for themselves, and they do it very well. And this has been a particularly good project from its inception. And I look forward to seeing it continue to grow and develop as time goes on.
good. Any other comments? Councillor Beale?
I should add that the shiny roof is compliments of Dan T and grants for $13,500. He was given the ability, every member of Parliament was given, I think it's $160,000, and Dan decided that it would be best, rather than do one project, he allocated the same amount of money to each municipality, and we'll all have got up. So, yeah, it's looking good.
Very good. Any other comments? Councillor Bradley?
No. Happy with it?
Very good. I shall put the recommendation to the vote then. Those in favour? And against? That is carried. I think our final item requiring decision, not final item in the agenda though I hasten to add this evening, is item 3.5, Gordon Street Recreation Reserve redevelopment. Mr CEO.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. This is a proposal that's going forward. Currently, Sport and Rec Victoria have got a range of stimulus grants available, $68 million to local government that's available for grant to make improvements, significant improvements on recreation reserves and other recreation facilities. And the project that we brought together quite quickly is the Gordon Street Rec Reserve redevelopment. We've held that land for quite some time for the purposes of the recreation reserve. As you'll all see, it's probably not the most brilliant shining icon that council has at the moment, but this project certainly does attempt to reinvigorate that recreational space for the whole community. It incorporates two large, we'll call them footballs, well, I prefer to use soccer, we'll defer to Councillor Braithwaite and Councillor Beales and call it football pitches, which could alternately be rugby pitches or hockey pitches as well. They're rectangular spaces. There's also a development of an AFLW dedicated football ground there with appropriate change rooms. There's also development of change rooms and social spaces around cricket and football pitches. I said it with that in thinking, didn't I? Football pitches. And also there'll be a turf wicket there at the cricket oval. So it's a very nice use of that space. There'll also be an active space with athletics or school athletics there as well. So it's very good use of a fairly small area. We're getting maximum benefit out of that with the AFLW oval and the two rectangular playing surfaces as well as the little space. The project total cost is $3.1 million. The current estimate's coming from our estimator, of which we'll be asking for $2.65 million from the state government through that stimulus package. Council is being asked to commit $150,000 from reserve towards the project and also utilise $300,000 from our federal government local roads and community infrastructure funding to fund that project. It really does represent a tremendous bang for buck for council. We get a very good return on our investment of $450,000. We're looking at a $3.1 million project, but I think it's a really great opportunity. I commend the staff who put that together very, very quickly. They've worked weekends to make that happen. Great commendation to them. They've done very well. So I'll leave it to council.
Thank you. Councillors, any questions for the CEO regarding this item? There being none, I'm looking for somebody to move. Councillor Hull and seconder, Councillor Braithwaite. Councillor Hull, would you like to speak to the motion?
I think this is an excellent project. I can go back quite some time and remember discussion on ovals over many years and how we could increase them and nothing ever happened. And finally, this is something that is really a step forward. And I also think that it's really important for the health of our community. Being involved in sport is fantastic. And this involves people from all types of sport, from all ages through, and will add very much to the single oval that we have out there. And the other thing is that some years ago, Ararat didn't do very well in the burden of disease reports for Victoria. Things like this, the Ararat Active and projects like this, I'm sure will go a long way to making sure that we don't stay down there in that area. And I think it's important. And it's just pure enjoyment. It's not just being out and doing physical things, it's just having fun as well. And I think this is a fantastic project. And again, full marks to the staff who've worked overtime to get it to this position. So pass on our thanks to them, Mr. CEO.
Thank you. Councillor Braithwaite.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I endorse all of Councillor Hull's comments. I think we saw a plan of this in our latest briefing and I was very excited by it. It's been decades needed and decades coming. And a multi-use, multi-sport, multi-age group, multi-gender facility like this is right in the space that needs that we need to be. It's got the potential to become a regional hub for AFLW women, a regional hub for soccer or rugby or hockey. And I just think, when I saw it, I just was extremely happy and I was supporting all the way down the line.
Very good. Any further comments, councillors? Councillor Orland.
If I might just indulge on a little bit of a history lesson, this has actually been something that I've enjoyed for quite some time. When I first got on the council, we were told that we had to have a nil discharge on the Pumpkins River. The only way we could do that was to look at what we could do with the water. The recycled water then began to be transported to the vineyard, beginning over to Montara, so they got the water. There was still water left over, so then we decided that we would put it on the oval, which was then being used by the association. I was a little bit horrified because I had a son playing on that oval, but I was told that it was treated, it was fine. You know how mothers panic about the lime on the sidelines and all sorts of things. And one of the other things that happened that not only did we address the recycled issue, which then not only went to that oval, it came to this oval, it's gone right through to, at the moment, Great Western, which is a great credit to this council for what they did all those years ago. But the other thing that I remember getting invited down to the oval one night with Henry Gunston, and he was meeting down there, and it was really quite interesting. I couldn't work out why Henry was invited down there by Tom Reynolds. Now, I was trying to remember today, not quite sure whether they played cricket together or football, but Tom Reynolds invited Henry down there because he wanted to give him, as a parting gesture when he retired, and this is probably a bit naughty, these lights, these overhead lights. So we had lights down there, which was a great gift from the state government, because we had the Ministers for Sport and Recreation come down to that little oval and say, here's a set of lights for you to play under. So that whole precinct has got a wonderful history attached to it. The whole thing, it's very sad that we lost the tech school, but we can't do very much about that. But this area is quite an area that we can be proud of, also having the Pony Club right alongside as well. So it's a really great space for everything to actually be included. So it's great to see this result. And I just think that, you know, our staff, as I've just proved, keep putting their hats on as to how they can better improve this community, not just in 5 minutes, but over many, many years. And all the steps they take seem to be in the right direction. And I'm very proud of that, because that's not easy to do when you've got money coming in and money going out, and you don't always have the same budget every year. You just keep pushing forward and you can achieve great things, and I think this is a fantastic result.
Thank you. Any other comments, councillors? Councillor, Councillor Ward.
No, that's all good. No. I'm actually pleased it's only 150,000, by the way. Forget the other money, it was federal government money anyway, so council money. I'm not a great believer, and I'll be misquoted again, I know, in proliferation of sporting facilities. However, this one's completely brilliant. Not only is it, as it's been said before, multi-purpose, but the little laughs have been in an area that you wouldn't leave a dog in the past. You go up to Stall and see the athletic tracks up there that they've got. Now, we're not going to have that here, but we'll have a safe public environment. People will see them running for a change. People will say, well, maybe my kid could do that. It's unfortunate that rugby can be played on those ovals, but it's possible that rugby league might come instead. But it is a really compact area. Can't play soccer here, can't play rugby here. You play Australian rules football and that's it, and cricket and netball. This is just, yeah, brilliant. And again, as other councillors mentioned, not in our current budget. 2 weeks' notice, plans drawn up, all done. What great staff we have.
Very good. Councillor Hunt, would you like to put
I
forward
think
some
it's all
closing
been
remarks?
said. I think you can say that every councillor here is fully supportive and very pleased to see it happen.
Okay, well, we'll look for that evidence when I put the recommendation to the vote in two parts. Councillors, those in favour and against, that's carried. We move to section 4, information reports. Item 4.1, the Council Plan 2017 to 21, Year 3, which is the yearly action plan update. Mr CEO, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is our yearly action plan update from the council plan. As you recall, last year we moved to a model where we identified very clearly the actions that we move forward with. We produced an annual action plan that staff had to focus on during that time. I guess I'm never happy unless we get a perfect score, so we completed 31 of the 48 actions completely, 12 within 51 to 99% complete, one that was barely complete and 4 are ongoing out of that. So I'm disappointed in that, but I think when you look at the volume of work we've achieved during the year, it still represents a fairly good effort in a pretty tough year with COVID-19 and other issues distracting us for well over a quarter. But the items we don't complete this year will roll over in the next council plan period, and I'm hoping the majority of those incomplete actions will actually be complete by the end of the next financial year. The one that was barely complete was actually a pretty ambitious target that we perhaps should have thought about a bit more carefully, which was attraction of a 4-star accommodation facility, which was pretty hard in the COVID environment given people weren't investing too much in accommodation infrastructure during that period. So that's the council's information. That's where we're at.
Thank you very much. Any questions of the CEO, councillors? There being none, we have a recommendation that we receive the report on the Year 3 update. Do I have somebody to move that recommendation? Councillor Deutsch and Councillor Beales to second. Councillor Deutsch, any comments?
It's always good to move forward, and ever since our CEO came in, we have been moving forward. It's great to see.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Beales, any comments?
Nothing.
Any other councillors? No, that being the case, I'll put the recommendation to the vote. Those in favour and against, and that is carried. Item 4.2, Capital Works Program 2019 to 2020. Mr CEO, another report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Another report. This is an annual update on our Capital Works program. As I identified at the very beginning of that report, the executive summary, there are a number of projects that are incomplete. Taddew North Helen Dwight Road, henceforth known as the Cursed Road job. It isn't complete at this stage, but I've been talking to our contractors and that will be finished by the 30th of September this year. It has had soft spots, it has had rock, it has had a spring running under the road, it has had just about everything that can go wrong with it. And I guess COVID-19 also means that we can't operate at full construction capacity due to physical distancing requirements as well, so that makes a difference the way we can efficiently complete roads. The Elmhurst Hall has had some construction delays over demolition permits, but that's now progressing very well. The fountain, so I'll try not to laugh as I've done this one, but it is that project, isn't it? It's had some COVID-19 delays now because the artisan working on the fountain had put himself into very strict self-isolation during COVID-19, I believe, and we're still waiting for that project to be finished, but the fountain is now painted. I think it looks terrific, apart from the fact that it now requires a cherubim and some orbs on the top to complete the project. So we're waiting on those to mysteriously appear. Leatherwood Drive, there was a delay to commencing that project, but that will be complete by mid-July, so there's not too much of a lag on that one. And Pollins Bridge, we've had some delays. The EOI process became quite difficult. It was like herding cats trying to get contractors together for an EOI meeting during the COVID-19 process. We eventually did that, and it's gone out. It'll be out to tender this week. So, and we're hoping that can actually, construction on that bridge can commence pretty quickly.
I think when we were talking about the Kit Bridge solutions, that we thought we were going to run some sort of workshop with the local contractors.
Yeah, we attempted to do that in a virtual way, Councillor Braithwaite online, and that was a difficult part of the process. We have been through it. We had the Kit Bridge construction firm run that workshop for us. So there were 4 contractors interested in that project, and they've all been asked to tender for the job. So we actually have had that process, but it was hindered a bit by not being able to be face to face on site, working through that process as we had have hoped.
Any other questions for the CEO, Councillor? Yes, Councillor Atkinson.
I just had a comment from some community people at Lake Bolac that they're concerned that when the gravel roads are being graded, they're now being flattened rather than mounded slightly, and in wet weather they're creating puddles and potholes, and they just wondered if the people responsible for that grading could be encouraged to return to the old way of just creating a slight mound. Yeah.
We have been working to improve, this isn't related to capital works, it's actually gravel roads maintenance we're talking about now, but we have been moving towards improving technique in that space. Because an observation I made when I first started was there was some fairly average technique being applied to our gravel road maintenance. And I had to talk to our coordinator of operations only this week about that issue again. And some of our grader drivers have actually worked really well in that space, others not so well. So we're actually attempting to move forward in that. But I've got to say though, one thing we've learned as a council pretty quickly is that everyone has a view on gravel road maintenance. Everyone has a very different view on how it should be done. And you could ask 30 people and you get 47 different answers to how they think it should happen. So.
Well, the other point that they made was they were disappointed with the quality of the gravel being put on the roads.
And that's the other point that you'll get 47 different answers to. Everyone thinks it's got to be a gravel particular pit or a different particular type of gravel, and there are a million different conversations around that that I'm involved in every day of my working life.
Councillor Braithwaite, have a question?
Yeah, and we do have quite a lot of outsourced grading done by the private sector. We've had 7 grader teams out in the last couple of months.
Yep.
My road is a 1.3 kilometre dirt road to my house. They did a fantastic job, whoever did it, and they did put a camera on it. One of the problems with materials is its location and the cost of transportation. It's just a fact of life.
Yeah, but we're always, we don't ignore that issue, Councillor Atkinson. We do actually continually try to work around mixes of materials to improve the quality of binders and gravel in the mix, but it is, as Councillor Braithwaite rightly points out, it can be very expensive to cart high quality gravel from one side of the municipality to another, where we do have access to natural gravels in other places that are okay for use. So yeah, but you will find you'll have a lot of people want to talk to you about gravel road maintenance. They'll have different opinions on how that should be.
Councillor Orwell, do you have a question?
I'm not going down the road path, but can I just say that with the skate park, I had an elderly person pull me up in the supermarket, and her grandchildren came up from Melbourne and they could not believe that Ararat could build a skate park the way that they had and have the quality that was there. She was absolutely amazed. Probably never would have visited otherwise, but she went down there with her grandchild, and yeah, really pleased with the result. So that was good to hear from the elderly.
And on that note, I think we've moved from commentary to commentary rather than questions for the CEO. So, councillors, we have a recommendation that we receive the current status report on the Capital Works program. Do I have somebody to move? Councillor Deutsch, seconded Councillor Beales. Councillor Deutsch, do you wish to speak to the motion?
It's wonderful to see it happening. That's all I can say. It's wonderful to see it happening.
Very good. Councillor Beales? No other councillors wishing to speak to the motion? Then I shall put that motion to the vote. Those in favour and against, and that is carried. Item 4.3, the Community Satisfaction Survey for this year. Mr. CEO.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Community Satisfaction Survey is conducted in February, March each year. I think there are 64 councils in Victoria who participate in that process. I actually think it's an important process for us to participate in. It gives us a sense of how we're travelling against other councils, and also some sense of how the community perceives their performance. So I'd recommend that we continue to undertake that process. We did have what I regard as fairly good results this year in the survey. I think we've certainly achieved much better in all bar one of the areas of the survey. And the significant improvements over the last period of time have been an overall performance. Perceptions of overall performance of council have raised from 37% that we performed well in 2018 to 49 in 2019 to 60% in 2020. Overall council direction has been 29% in 2018 through to 63% in 2020, and customer service has improved considerably during that period as well. As I always say, we can never be good enough for our community, so we shouldn't rest in our laurels ever around results of this kind. We can never ever be good enough. We can never perform well enough. But I think it's certainly endorsement of the direction Council's chosen to take. I think endorsement of the fact that the staff are getting behind that direction and working hard in that space. I'll just draw your attention to the commentary on table 3 on page 42 that looks at, compares our performance against the small rural average and the statewide average in 2019 and 2020. In 2019, we performed better than the state average in 3 areas, 3 of 19 areas. And against small and rurals, we did better in 5 of 19 areas and did worse than the state average in 14 and 13 in small rural average. And we've almost turned that around in the next year with us performing better than small rural average in 14 of 19 areas and better than state average in 12 of 19. That's a significant turnaround in terms of perceptions of our community's perception of performance ahead of what's seen by other small rural residents and statewide averages. And I think that is the take-home message there, that we are starting to move in the right direction. But as I say, don't rest on our laurels. We can never be good enough, and we just need to keep moving in that right direction.
Very good. Any questions for the CEO?
Yes,
Councillor
of
Gibbs.
course, I'm glad you've used that word perceptions, because it is a perception survey. So how do they do it? It's an independent company. Do they only phone landlines, or do they phone mobile numbers?
They currently only phone landlines, Councillor Beals, yes.
So that would restrict the
It does. Yeah, it does skew the results towards older members of the community who typically still answer their landlines or have landlines. But as I've said previously, I'm on the statewide group at LGV who provide advice to them on these surveys and other performance measures. And I think the recommendations going forward is we need to review how the survey's undertaken from now on.
In relation to the landline, though, that's just one issue. If you look at the ages of the people, they're obviously getting younger people, so it's not just older people answering the phone.
Careful.
Maybe I'm being very careful. They pass it to the younger family members and get their perceptions as well. So,
Well, they might still have a landline and answer themselves at home too.
not many of them around.
I might pick up their parents' phone.
True.
That's right. Any other questions, councillors? No? We have a recommendation that the Community Satisfaction Survey 2020 report be received. Do I have somebody to move the recommendation? Councillor Hull, and seconded Councillor Deutsch. Councillor Hull?
I think it's a very pleasing report, or survey results, I probably should say. And I can remember years when the results were quite disappointing, and this has certainly improved considerably on those years. I endorse the fact that you can always do better, and I'm sure next year it will be even better again. But to get this level of satisfaction and to move up, particularly on a statewide basis, the way that this report indicates that this council has done and how the public perceives this council is no small achievement. And I think it comes from all areas of councillors, but in particular the staff, because it's the work that they do that directly impacts with the community. And they obviously think that we're doing some things pretty well. And so congratulations to all concerned. And as I said, as the CEO said, it can always be better. And we look forward to that.
Thank you. Councillor Deutsch?
Wonderful.
Very good. Any other comments, councillors? Councillor Beals?
Maybe I should just make the one that it's also the perception of the community of the role of the councillors in performing within the organisation as well. So very pleasing that the public thinks that we're doing all right as a group.
I shall put that in motion to the vote then. Those in favour? And against? And that is carried. Thank you. Moving to section 5, committee minutes and reports, item 5.1, section 86, committees and management minutes. Mr. CEO.
Yeah, there was one Section 86 committee held, Laura Hall, Memorial Hall Committee. Councillor Beals was representative. He attended.
I attended, if you wish me.
There have been no other meetings since then that we've received minutes from, so it's a recommendation there.
There is, certainly. Councillor Beals?
I'll move the recommendations.
So no, but firstly, no questions from councillors? No? So Councillor Beals, you wish to move the recommendation as put?
Indeed.
And somebody to second that motion? Thank you, Councillor Braithwaite.
That now I'll speak to it.
Thank you,
Because I'll tell
Councillor Beals.
The meeting was quite interesting with, I think, only one person on the committee was missing. They were so desperate to get together and meet, and they made some substantial decisions. They have decided to spend the majority of their money that they've saved over the years to put in a large screen that's retractable and computer generated slideshow films. They've had programs in the past there where they've had 150 kids come on school holiday programs to watch a movie. This will make it's almost as good as the town hall. It's modelled on that. They're spending $25,000 on the project, and it will make it not only viable for community use, but businesses to go up there and have, as they do, elders might have a presentation, other rural groups. So it's pleasing that some, and I think a lot of our community groups are looking beyond just being a community hall, but to actually generate income and help the council maintain it. Good.
Very good. Good to learn. Thank you, Councillor Beals. I shall put the motion to the vote then. Those in favour of receiving the report and against? And that is carried. Thank you. Section 6, notices of motion. We've not received any. Thank you. We move to section 7. There was no urgent business received. Section 8, which is the closed session, the confidential part of our meeting this evening, and I'd just like to make the statement that in accordance with the relevant sections of the Local Government Act 2020, the following agenda items are listed for consideration in the confidential section, items 8.2 and 8.3, which are both regarding the supply of electricity, and they are therefore commercial contractual matters, hence the need for confidential discussion. So I have a recommendation that we close this council meeting to the public. And do I have somebody to move? Councillor Beals, seconded Councillor Hull. Those in favour? And against? And that is carried. Thank you. Thank you. Councillors, we will now open the council meeting again. I have a recommendation that we recommence the open meeting. Moved Councillor Beals and seconded Councillor Hull. Those in favour? And against? That is carried. And the next item, or the final item on our agenda, is the lifting of confidentiality of the closed session resolutions we have just made. The recommendation is that we do lift the confidentiality of the report and decisions made for items 8.2 and 8.3 in the confidential agenda. Do I have somebody to move? Councillor Beals, seconded Councillor Allgood. Those in favour? And that is carried, and I declare our meeting duly closed. Thank you. 7:01 p.m.